It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design Group. All right, back for another podcast. With us today, we've got Peter Lawrence.
Hi there.
Ben Story.
Hey, everybody.
And for the first time, Corey Alex.
Hello, happy to be here.
So Microsoft is end-of-lifing SharePoint 2019, which is the on-prem version, the last on-prem version they created. They did that in, I got the data here, July 14th, 2026 is what it's been extended to. I think it was in January of 2024 is when they announced.
Yeah.
And they're
doing SharePoint 2016. So if anybody's on 2016 or SharePoint on-prem 2019, both end of life on July of 2026.
Which means no more updates, no more attention. They don't care about it anymore. It's all on you. It's not going to just shut off.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's on-prem. So, I mean, it'll continue running as long as an organization wants to take the risk of,
right.
Security updates or anything else to stay compliant.
But this is not the death of on-prem, because coming soon is SharePoint Subscription Edition, right? SE?
Yes.
And basically it's taking their cloud kind of model and putting it on-prem.
Really?
Yeah. I did some reading, and it's still, there's a server cost, and there's the client access licenses, the CALs, but then there's the, the software assurance. That's what it's called. That's required. And those are the nickels that will trickle into Microsoft's pocket over time.
Right.
So what are the implications of this?
I mean, there's definitely a lot of things that people have to consider because, think about all the customizations and things like that people have done throughout the years of SharePoint on-prem, because you had way more control over the things that you wanted to customize over the things like you can't customize when you're in the cloud. I mean, and just thinking about that first, and then second is compliance, security, all those things. Like, you would be more prone to possibly a cyber attack, after the updates are no longer coming in. So got to make sure that, taking all those things into consideration as well.
So you shut off external access, you put this in a vault, you hire your best IT people in the world, and then you can sleep well at night with 2019 still running.
More or less. Yeah.
We're self-insured. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to take the risk on.
Yeah, I look at, thinking about this in terms of an entire project, start to finish, of making the next step. You've got all these different options. You've got going to the cloud. I mean, we've all done migrations from on-prem to the cloud, except Peter. He's a .NET developer that has avoided SharePoint successfully for many years.
Ever since Kyle came on board, I've been dodging that particular work stream.
The first thing I did was take a SharePoint work off Peter's plate. Yeah.
The best day of my life.
It was glorious. So there's that cloud migration. There's a compliance factor, regulation factor, all that kind of stuff, which you can still do in the cloud, but that's tricky. Because there's government cloud, there's a version for healthcare, there's versions that stay in whatever region. So if you're global, everybody has their own I guess, destination for their data that's in their country. There's all those types of options. There's a lot of ciphering. It's got to go on. There's a lot of math.
But that's
Decision
the obvious
making.
choice, right? Like if
Yeah.
you had a SharePoint 2019 instance, the obvious choice would be to go to the cloud. Now is the time.
Yeah.
You've been dragging it on for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. I don't even know when 2019 was announced, but
Yeah.
or 2016, even longer.
Right.
Corey,
Yeah.
do you agree with that? That's the like path of least resistance? Is that gonna, because you're going to the cloud, which means Exchange, it means Active Directory, it means like moving all that over. Because you've done migrations in the past. Like,
Yes, I have. Mhm. Yeah,
what's your
and
take?
I actually have an interesting stat from Microsoft that they posted last month. They actually said over 70% of enterprises have migrated from on-prem to online, which, what do we all think? Is that a pretty good number? 70%?
Yeah, I would say it's probably fairly accurate, but the things that people are probably going to have to really consider is some of that data that might need to move to the new SharePoint subscription edition because of maybe government regulations or PHI or things like that. And then there's just some organizations that just have always wanted to stay on-prem for the control that, like Peter said, now's the time. Now's the time to modernize. You get so much more bang for your buck by moving to 365 than you do staying with SharePoint on-prem.
Yeah,
But
you really
so
do.
I definitely think it's the path of least resistance for these organizations versus trying to think of like, oh, I'm going to move to Google or, something crazy like that, because that's just going to be a crazy amount of work to switch platforms.
I mean,
Right.
is
Yeah.
my is
And
my
then you have some
assumption
very-
that they're a Office 365 or a Microsoft Exchange or whatever you want to call it? Like, does Microsoft Exchange even exist anymore? Is that all already moved to 365?
None of us
I have
Exchange.
moved all my
Great
Exchange
question.
servers that I've ever supported into the cloud. They are all running on Office 365. Now I was lucky it was only one, so it wasn't a big deal. But I mean, if you've got any ties to Office 365, isn't SharePoint Cloud the way to go, or would you still go with SE?
I think SharePoint Cloud's the way to go. But again, like people with government contracts, we've been talking with a couple clients that have some contracts with certain government agencies, and they just, for some rhyme or reason, and I mean, I haven't read too much into like the reasoning, but they're like, we have to keep this data on premise. And
Right.
that's just going to be going with like some sort of hybrid model where you may need to move a few things to the SharePoint subscription edition, and then the rest of it will need to move into 365.
I did
Yeah.
check, and Exchange
Hybrid.
is on the same path. It's the same trajectory where it's the current version is going away actually in 2025 this year, and then it will be this subscription model with their next version. It's their cloud first initiative, as they're calling it, like trying to get people to the cloud, which is, I think, if it was up to me, cloud.
Oh, hands down. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been involved in migrations like you just described, where it's somewhat of a hybrid, like maybe the company has like data retention policies, or if there's PII or PHI considerations. I mean, nowadays you can get, I believe it's called a BAA with Microsoft, a business associate agreement, and they will cover you if you have PHI in the cloud. But some entities just aren't there yet. They're not comfortable with that, which I totally understand that. So, maybe you have like the 80-20 rule. You got 80% of your internal work sites up on cloud, and then the 20 you keep locally running an older version
Yeah.
of SharePoint server. I mean, they can interact. Nothing saying they can't.
Yeah, there's a lot of in the cloud you can have things running that will kind of keep everybody honest. Data loss prevention, data retention policies, all that kind of stuff. Scanning your data, making sure you don't have things with PII in it and stuff like that. There's compliance tools. There's a lot to it, and there's a lot of setup, but there's a lot built into it that lets you lock your data down and be compliant.
Yeah, I know one of the big benefits of going to cloud is just the update process. I don't know if anybody's been involved in doing a SharePoint server upgrade. I know I was involved in like going from 2010 to 2013 and then 2013 to 2016. And I kid you not, during the 2016 migration, I swear the completion task, the percentage complete when I was trying to install on one of the app servers, it immediately jumped up to 80%. And then I'm not joking, it went back down to like 23. And it was like on a seesaw. It was going back and forth.
Oh, you mean those documents too? Oh, okay. I'll count those now, and we'll go back down to 23%.
Maybe
Yeah.
that was it.
But
So
with
Ben,
the new SE version is the final version.
Right.
That's going to be the updates and stuff trickling in. And no next major version releases. They're just going to keep rolling the features and stuff like that out.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a benefit with SharePoint Online right there. Microsoft manages all that for you. They do all the updates, all the patches, all the security enhancements. You don't have to deal with any of that as an administrator.
Right. Yeah, you
Sometime
still have
even-
to decide how you're going to manage all that patching and all that.
Sometime
kind
when
of
you're
stuff.
expecting it, right, Kyle?
Yep. Just usually happens at the best possible time when nothing bad has ever happened, nothing
That's right.
urgent. So,
Ben, I got a question for
go ahead.
Ben. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm going to the special edition or the subscription edition, sorry,
Mhm.
too many SEs in my brain.
Right.
Is that a migration or is that an upgrade?
I think it's kind of an upgrade because I think you're kind of going to a newer version of SharePoint, even though it's probably going to be very, very close to SharePoint 2019 and how it looks and feels, because that had all the modern stuff that SharePoint Online had. But it is going to be a migration. Like, you still need to move your information, whether that's, doing a database attach, detach type method, which gets messy and it can be very tricky when you're starting to move databases. Or you might be trying to use a tool to do it as well. So yeah, it will definitely be a migration at some point.
Yeah, there's no in-place upgrade.
No.
You run on the same server for it. So I think database attach is your best option.
Yep.
And that's where you have to still do all of SharePoint has like a configuration database and then a content database.
Yep.
So you're not really doing the configuration database. You're doing all that stuff as part of your server setup. Then you attach the content database.
Okay.
And then it goes in and it tries to update everything to make sure it's compatible. And that's when you're sitting there with your stomach twisting in knots and
Please finish.
Yeah.
Please finish. Right.
Yeah. Please don't
Yeah.
arrow. Yeah, and you just watching that progress bar. It's painful because we've done these attached database upgrades before for various reasons, and they're always nerve-wracking because you just never know what kind of leftover stuff might be in that database, because that database could have came from SharePoint 2010 and then upgraded to 2013 and then upgraded again, and you're just got so many old artifacts in there, and that could really kind of screw with your upgrades because of those artifacts. So it's just one thing to kind of keep in mind is how old are those content databases.
Right. Yeah, question for everyone. What's the first version of SharePoint that you worked on, excluding Peter?
2007.
Because 2000 Moss, 2007 for me.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah,
SharePoint 2003. Yeah, portal
Same
services.
here, Kyle. 2003 for me as well.
Yeah. So 2000 Moss 2007 was the first version that had content types.
Yep.
And they replaced something called portal areas. And I had built a online manual for a company for their mergers and acquisitions and stuff. This was their whole playbook. And everybody had their own chunk of the playbook that they would constantly be working on and updating. And that was all built in portal services. And it all went away and was replaced by content types, which worked differently. So I worked 48 hours over a weekend without sleep to rebuild the whole thing. That will not be happening again.
You know, it's kind of funny. That was one of the first things that I noticed, you know, back in those old days, you could go right into those app databases and make changes and updates. You could customize the header and do all kinds of stuff like that. And
yeah,
going to cloud, you're using the GUI from now on. You don't have that administrator level of control anymore.
You know, the admin access and all that. It's like the good thing is that it saved you from creating a lot of problems for yourself.
Right.
The bad thing is it prevented you from creating a lot of solutions for yourself.
Yeah.
Yep. With each new update, your custom web part would break or whatnot.
Do you know if SE is still going to support the old front end publishing and all that kind of stuff, the old search?
That I haven't honestly looked into.
I didn't either.
Too much yet, just because it is so new and hard to get your hands on right now because of licensing and stuff like that. So
yeah,
go ahead, Corey.
You go first.
I was just going to say there is the hybrid option, which to me is the most complicated, where you're doing some cloud and some on-prem. So you might be doing
it is, but it offers a little bit of a strategic approach for people who still need to have that sensitive data and keep that sensitive data on-prem. That's where you kind of got to look at the 80-20 type rule or so. Try to get, I think a good recommendation would be just get 80 to 90% of your stuff in the cloud. And if it's 10 to 20% of that sensitive data, then that's where think hybrid and move that sensitive data over to the SE edition, and then think about, you know, is there apps or other things down the road or other contracts that we can work out with Microsoft to eventually, hopefully someday, fully be in the cloud and just have all the things there to be able to take advantage of, you know, Power Platform or Copilot or whatever that might be.
So for the 30% of people that are sitting there with an on-prem server or server farm or whatever you want to call it, what's the first step? Call Ben, call Corey.
I mean, for sure, I'd love to do an assessment and try to figure out what there is, but I don't know. And everybody kind of thinks about it a little bit differently. My first step is always looking at, do you have any customizations, like custom master pages, custom page layouts, all the things that you can possibly do on-prem that you can't really do in the cloud? Do you have InfoPath still running on-prem? Do you have SharePoint Designer workflows or anything like that running? on-prem, and we got to document all of it because all of that whole world changes.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
it'll
that is
still
key.
run InfoPath.
I mean, you'd be surprised. There's a lot of people out there that have still SharePoint on-prem that still are using
Yes.
InfoPath.
Yeah.
In
Kyle sheds a
2011,
tear for every InfoPath.
no,
workflow.
in 2011, I went to a SharePoint conference, or was it 2013? I think it was 2013, where they were announcing the death of InfoPath, and
Still
and
here.
then I got into it with the guy from Microsoft about like how is that even possible? Like, it's not going to happen. Too many businesses run their entire operation on InfoPath, and they're business critical, and it's been their tardigrade. It's like a prion. You can't kill it.
Yeah. I mean, Corey
Yeah,
or Kyle, I mean, from a prep standpoint, did anything else to add on that kind of like first step to migration?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I like to think about, like, if we're talking pre-migration, yes, it's absolutely critical that you assess your current environment and you take inventory, all the sites, all the applications, like you said, if there's customization. And another real just commonsensical thing is notify users, let them know, hey, this is coming and you're going to be actively involved in this migration process. I kind of think of it like, if it's a collaboration team that's executing this, or a 365 team, they're going to be the ones to communicate to the site owners in classic SharePoint to be ready.
Yeah. I think that, that upfront, evaluation where you just investigate and uncover all of the little parts and pieces that are going to have to be considered.
Mm-hmm.
And
All the
maybe you do some of
questions.
that groundwork yourself, if you PowerShell it just to look at the environment or what have you. Yeah.
Yeah, there's good tool. Like I think ShareGate's a pretty good tool for analyzing your environment, and
Yep.
like you said, PowerShell, and you can find a lot of pre-built scripts online.
Well, believe it or not, Microsoft also has a utility now to migrate. It's a free
Yeah,
utility. Have you
to-
used that? I haven't touched that.
it's not great, to be completely honest. Like,
Okay.
the free version will only get you so far, and that so far is not very far, to be honest. And
Yeah.
you're better off paying the 5 or 6K to go grab like a ShareGate license and have a full feature environment plus admin features plus reporting features plus like everything else that comes with this tool now. It's heads and tails, just the best tool out there. Shameless plug, but we
No,
love it. And it just makes our lives as consultants and doing these migrations so much easier.
I agree with you, Ben. I'm there with you with ShareGate. And in fact, I did work on a project where we were dealing with a company that was an IBM shop and they were migrating to Microsoft. So does anybody remember Lotus Notes?
Yep.
Kind of email, forms, database kind of thing. ShareGate worked wonders to actually migrate Lotus Notes into a classic SharePoint setup. It is possible.
So, okay, so I've told my users, I've done my cataloging and everything. What would I miss? What could I miss? Like, if there's a rogue user that's going off and building awesome customizations all over the place, are you guys going to catch that at that cataloging time still?
Yeah, because when you do these migrations, you got to map your on-prem users to cloud-based users.
Okay.
And the other thing that could be possibly missed, is architecture, because we have to re-architect the whole environment, because typically on these SharePoint on-prem environments, you're going site, you got your top level site, you might have a department level site, and under that department level site, you might have some group level, very specific things. So you got like site, subsite, and we got to take that deep architecture and we got to turn it into flat architecture. We got to look at where can we create hub sites now in Office 365 and make sure all those infrastructure things are in place as well, and taking into account, you know, these groupings of things. How do we move these groupings up to their own site collection versus a subsite of a subsite of a subsite type of scenario. So it's you know taking, that's kind of the next level of things that people often forget about, is that flat architecture in 365. I mean, you can do a lift and shift. It's not going to work.
Okay, because all those subsites would just fail on the new system.
It's still the legacy stuff is still in there, but it's
unreachable.
It's not. Well, it creates this you know, this security inheritance issue.
Okay.
There's huge performance hits, especially if you're using the kind of automated navigation type stuff. There's a lot of, if you just have to do it. You just got to get rid of the whole subsite model if you can, and using it. You know, we like ShareGate. I mean, Ben and I have been using it for years. Corey, you've been using it for years.
I'm there with you.
Just for the permissions, just to understand like what the permissions are for all this stuff, because it can get really complicated. So I think it's a good opportunity to simplify your environment, and the hub structure gives you, I think, the same benefits, the real benefits, without the stuff that's going to really mess you up.
Yeah. And security is so much more customizable. I know I was at a client one time, and every site they had, every team site, they had a public-facing team site that the whole company had access to, and then they had a private sub-site that was just for their team, and it was locked down just to the members. And so obviously going from classic to modern, we had to flatten that, and we just used security on the one site instead of having two disparate sites.
And so you flatten it before you start moving it, so you get it in the class or in SharePoint 19, you make those changes to get it ready to move, or is that part of the move?
It depends. Sometimes we'll take and we'll go create a brand new blank site, and typically we'll just move content.
Think of it like a template.
So we're just moving like lists and libraries versus like the whole SharePoint site, because it typically goes smoother when we're just dealing with content versus actual SharePoint moves, again, because the transition could always be goofy when moving like an on-prem full site to a cloud-based site, because the cloud-based sites have different kind of code behind their master pages and page layouts and all the fluid things that are out there now that are not available. So you're better off just kind of creating new blank infrastructure and then just moving your content. And then how much content do you need to move? Is it 5 years, 10 years? You know, that's another conversation to think about, right?
That's a real big one, Ben.
I need my phone list from 20 years ago. Come on.
I have led content cleanup initiatives so many times, and it's awful. No one wants to do it. Nobody wants to clean up. And then nobody wants to throw anything away, because you might need that phone list. And
I need that phone list, even though those phones don't exist anymore and those numbers aren't real and the people might have, who knows?
Yeah. Those party lines don't exist anymore, you know.
So, you know, when I talked about in pre-migration, it's good to notify the users and, you know, talk through their sites. There was one site I had found, and it was like the team, had some members, they were part of the social committee too. And I kid you not, they had gigs and gigs of like digital camera pictures that they put in their SharePoint site. You know, it was like potluck from like, you know, 15 years ago. And, you know, do you really need those migrated to modern? Like, The good news is they got a lesson on web friendly picture formats, how to create a JPEG from a TIFF. If you remember
Nice.
beloved TIFF files. So
Yeah.
some of that
So
stuff is important.
don't forget about versioning.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, because
Okay, you guys are all saying yep, like it's written on a poster in your bedroom, but what are you
I'm
talking
looking at it
about?
right now.
so let's say you got a PowerPoint and someone's got to use it out in the field. So it's got to have everything embedded in it. And people work on it all the time to get it ready. And you have unlimited versioning turned on. And every time you make changes, it's basically creating a copy of it. And then you work on the copy and then save that. And now that's a copy. Yeah. Real world experience. You're at your quota. You're at your storage quota, and you've been using this. You've been in the cloud for 5 minutes. What's going on?
I mean, it's a blessing and a curse a little bit, right? Because
Yeah.
the versioning saves people all the time. I
Yes.
mean, it
Oh,
truly can be a
millions.
lifesaver, but yes, it is definitely something that we have to take into consideration when moving, because you may have 100 versions of a file. Do you need all 100 versions of that file to migrate?
No.
Probably not, maybe 5, right?
Yep.
Because that storage, like Kyle just alluded to, it will add up quick, and it could double, triple, quadruple your migration time if you need to move all those huge versions of those files, because you're just multiplying the types of data that you're moving 2, 3, 4x.
Ugh.
Yeah, and there's the nice thing about those more robust migration tools is you can tell it like, okay, bring this file over and the last 2 versions, not the last 10.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you set up the new one. You want to have versioning, but you don't want to have unlimited versioning. That's what gets you in trouble. And it really depends on your storage. Now I did some investigating, and one of the numbers that was like thrown out was it's gonna roughly be over twice as expensive. And to move to SE and the subscription model over like 5 years. You're going to spend over double the money. And I did some Chat GPT calculations, adjusting for inflation, and it's only 73% more is what it came up with. So that sticker shock is like, well, wait a minute. And also, depending on the size of your company, depending on the version, all that kind of stuff. And then, but then you consider all of the benefits you're getting and all the time savings for, managing updates and all of that kind of stuff.
Just the innovation you're getting by moving to 365 is just hands down, just can't even compete with on-prem things.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So kind of think of it like pre-migration, migration, the actual process, and then post-migration. And post is where you start getting into some of the fun things you can review and start to optimize. For example, if somebody had a bunch of InfoPath app forms, now we can introduce them to Power Platform, the Power Apps, Power Automate if they have SharePoint designer workflows that are no longer functional.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Because it is definitely a 2-step process. It's migrate, let's get your content up into cloud, and now let's look at modernization, because if stuff is really old, we got to look at these new tools. We got to start to modernize the technology and the things that you're using, so then you're more set up for successes in the future as Microsoft continues to make enhancements.
Yep. Yeah, a great example I can think of was doing a migration for a team that had an on-call rotation. And believe it or not, they had their on-call in a spreadsheet. It was like Excel 97. And I mean, it was well kept up. They had, who was on call each week and months and, all out. migrating from that up to a Power App that could do notifications and Teams and email and just the ease of submission, it was like night and day for them. They were so excited.
It's nice when you can give somebody that's been sort of using a spreadsheet tool for a long time a fairly straightforward, easy upgrade that gives them more features and that provides all the functionality, right?
Yeah, and with the low code platform too, they have the knowledge, they know what they need in their application, and you can deploy a whole lot faster than if it was a traditional code. Sorry, Peter.
That's quite all right. We understand that low code has its place.
Yeah, I think one of the like when you're doing your analysis and stuff like that up front, a lot of it is there's going to be what licensing, or what are we walking into in terms of licensing? What licenses do we need to get? It's always been very complicated to kind of figure that out and what the right answer is. I think it's easier though in the cloud.
Yeah, because you got the enterprise levels, enterprise 3, 5, etc.
Yeah. They kind of just set it up for you.
Add-ons for different things you need.
Yep.
Yeah.
More a la carte type features that you can take advantage of.
And those CALs are up front, and the server cost is up front for infrastructure. But then you've got the ongoing software assurance costs. If you have to go hybrid, if you have to go hybrid, then you have some sort of a mix of all that stuff. And so it does take some ciphering to kind of do all that.
Right.
I don't, if you have a real simple SharePoint environment, a lot of people just use SharePoint to store documents.
Right.
And the sites are really just to get to the documents you're storing.
Yep.
That's going to be real straightforward if it's not heavily regulated and all that kind of stuff. It's not going to be that bad to go through a migration. It really isn't. Database attach is going to work. You don't have a lot of customization. You don't have a lot of forms. So, it's a lot of companies have that where they're not running their full business off of it. They have a lot of other specialized tools, that's how some, I think, healthcare organizations do, stay HIPAA compliant and all that is they do their HIPAA in their healthcare systems, and they do their collaboration and that kind of stuff and document storage in SharePoint.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's all part of the evaluation process and that upfront, knowing all the things to look at.
Yeah, that's why, auditing your complete environment is going to be just such a key part of this journey for everyone.
So what's a standard, time frame for, Ben or Corey, you guys come in and you start taking a look at somebody's SharePoint install and everything. What are we talking about? I assume it's less than 6 months, but I'm not sure how much less than 6 months it is.
And are you kind of getting to the question of like how long could a migration take?
Well, or even how long could the investigation for how long the migration's going to
yeah,
initial time.
Yeah, initial audit or assessment is typically 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks of just kind of going in, running reports, trying to get as much help that we can possibly get.
That's really quick.
Yeah. And migrations, depending on the complexity, do you have the customizations like we've talked about, or the workflows or the forms, and all that stuff adds time and complexity to the migration. Those could take 6 to 12 months to be fully migrated, depending on how big your on-prem environment is.
Because you're rebuilding those from the scratch, basically.
Correct.
Or
Yeah, it really depends. If you think of like a team site like HR, they got a lot of content for the employee base. So, you almost have to have like a start and end cutoff time frame, for them to migrate so that all the content is current, and just participation too with the site owners. I know that can slow things down, if they're too busy with their main job and, they don't have time to work with you.
Right, because you need them to do and help with validations of your migrations, because typically we'll do like a round one, or we'll call it a test migration, to make sure that the content is going to move up and everything that we expect to move up or plan on moving up moves up. And we need help from the actual content owners to kind of validate it. And that could take even a week or so for them to have the time to go through all of it to validate it. And to Corey's other point of communication, it's like, we got to kind of take this iterative approach and communicate with people at the right time to say, hey, all right, here's our schedule for migration. Even though your site isn't moving for 6 months, we're still trying to get this out there. We'll follow back and circle up with you in 4 months when we're kind of getting into that next planning phase for when your site might move. So it's not like necessarily taking a big bang approach to say, we're just going to lift and shift all this stuff up in there. We got to look at these migrations very iteratively and kind of do chunks of these things at a time, do reviews with the business, plan with the business. Because if we don't involve the business and the SMEs and the different stakeholders in this whole process, it makes things very challenging, and things usually don't go as smoothly.
Right. You always miss something or something like that. But you guys don't take the 48-hour Kyle approach.
The Kyle approach. Well, okay, talking about the Kyle approach, I know when you're in the post-migration phase, it's always good to keep your classic on-prem around, because there'll be that one team that once you pull the plug on their access, they're going to be like, hey, I can't get to my site, even though you've been emailing them for weeks and weeks and weeks about this effort. And you'll get some of that.
So when you're at the whiteboard and you're talking about, how much you're going to bring over, your cleanup, your archiving, your deletion, what I always do is we'll just get rid of everything. We'll get rid of everything that hasn't been touched in 3 years. And if you don't have the business involvement, but you have to do it, you have to move forward. But you do have an executive sponsor that's really pushing this stuff. It's like that decision can be made, and you can move forward like that. And then you listen to the screams. It's not. So if you're part of the business, get involved. Dig in if you can, because if there's stuff you need that's 10 years old, and then there's why can't we just bring everything over? Well, you can. We've seen that. We've seen an entire company's data dumped into a single document library, lift and shift.
Yeah, like 1 million documents in one SharePoint site in one library. Think of the help desk tickets you're going to get with that mess.
I mean, it's sorted alphabetically. What more do you guys need?
Oh, man.
Oh, goodness.
You gotta pick your battles, and I think you have to be methodical about it, and you have to communicate a lot, and you need business involvement. You need a sponsor. If you can have a C in the title of the sponsor, it's a good thing.
Helpful.
If you can have the person with the C in the title as a sponsor, actually send out communications themselves saying, hey, this is happening. This is our team. This is what they're going to do. This is what you need to do to help them help you so that it goes smoothly and all the stuff you need gets moved over. But back to the 2019, when I heard that the 2019 is going away and they're going to a subscription model, my my initial gut was they're getting rid of on-prem,
Right.
Yep. Yep.
But they're not.
but yeah, they're not. And we're in the cloud, and I don't have to, it's you go from infrastructure management and administration to service management and administration,
Right.
where you're
Yes.
a configurator and you're setting it up. Microsoft will take you so far just out of the box or whatever, and then you have to take it farther depending on your content and your business model, all that kind of stuff. So it's a different kind of set of problems, but I think it's better than, because a lot of those problems you have in infrastructure anyway. I like it better. I like it doing it better, but it does mean dealing with change a lot more.
Yeah, I don't remember you
New
liking it better the
opportunities.
first day.
No, it took a while. Yeah. But this is a disruption. This is a disruptive move. And anytime that happens, it's like, we're going to make your life worse so that we can make it better.
Yeah, definitely long run, it will be better for everybody. The collaboration in the cloud, once we get into that modernization piece of it, is way better with the co-collaboration documents. We can get work done faster.
So
You
much
can
better.
grow into Copilot if that's something of an ambition for you or your organization. You can grow into Power Platform or Power BI to start getting better analytics within your data. So there's a lot of pros. I think the pros outweigh the cons when definitely moving, but it is a big change, and it will, growing pains are always going to be a challenge.
Right.
Yeah. And another post-migration activity is training. I mean, you can conduct training and teach the site owners all the new features, all the new enhancements, empower them, if you will.
For sure.
So going from classic to modern,
Mhm.
I had a customer I think I trained in a day, and they said, "I don't think we need you to be here anymore. I think we got this."
So
Yeah.
you did your job well.
I did. Yeah, it was great. That was the goal, is to put yourself out of work, get them what they need. Don't leave any scorched earth behind, solve the problems,
Right.
and help them out, and then get out the door.
Right off into the sunset.
So I count that as a win. Yeah, that was, talking yourself out of a lot of hours, by modernizing, is the right decision. I think that's one we've all made in the past and we'll keep making.
That's a good victory.
Yeah.
Yeah, one I can think of was working with the team, and there was a lady on the team, fantastic. She had been there 20 years with the company, and she had a process, her own team process of notifying salespeople in the field or whatever. She was emailing manually, she was communicating, all this stuff. We took her process that was in her head, and we developed a Power App with Power Automate Workflow, and she was just able to communicate exactly what she needed, being we were doing low code. And I was happy to say that after it was up and running for a couple of months, she ended up retiring. She was so happy. She's like, "I'm good. I can leave my baby alone now. It's fine."
That's a
And
relief.
most of our work does not result in retirements. To be fair.
Yeah, that was a special circumstance, but still.
Yeah, but it's fun.
to
It's fun when
participating with
somebody
that.
can let go.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, it's like going, your infrastructure people get very worried
Mhm.
when there's no servers in their server room. And it's like making the transition to, managing the stuff in the cloud. There's plenty to figure out, and there's plenty to do.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yes.
And the more time they have, it's like you're taking a lot of the burden off, but you're giving them a lot more time and focus on kind of the configuration and the services and all of that stuff. It's a big platform, and there's a lot of complexity, and there's things you need to do and ways you need to do it. And so shifting your expertise to that it doesn't feel that really that differently,
Right.
as a gig. Like, you're not walking in and pushing the power button on a server.
You
You're
kind of miss
not-
using terminal server, jumping onto the server and stuff like that. You don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah. So how soon does this need to happen for people?
Well, I think to kind of put some bows on it, like, don't wait. Don't wait until next year, even though you think you haven't all this time. These environments are complex typically, and the deadline's going to be here before you know it. Start planning now, start getting your ducks in a row and thinking about that strategy on what's next for your SharePoint environment, whether that's, moving to subscription based, on-prem, or moving to the cloud. We gotta get going, because these things take longer than what you think.
It's gonna happen. It's inevitable.
Right.
And it's like, the sooner you can get started, you get some eyes on it, and kind of expose all of the bits and pieces of it, and get some decision making started.
Get your teams together.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Corey, any other parting thoughts before we shut her down here?
It may seem overwhelming, but once you get the planning done, that's probably the big chunk of the work, knowing what you're dealing with. And once you actually start migrating, then it's just lickety split.
Yeah. Peter?
I was going to say, if your site is easy, don't wait. If your site is hard, really don't wait. Get started now.
Yeah.
Yes.
You'll be happier in the end.
Yeah. It'd be better to get done before July than running up against those July deadlines. Again, will your SharePoint server stop working? No. But
Right.
no one wants to have to worry about security or lawsuits or whatever that might come because of a data breach and you're 3 or 4 days out and people have been waiting to try to hammer these SharePoint servers or something.
But
So-
do know the requirements of the stuff that's regulated. Because a lot of that content might require, as part of your insurance policy or something, might require you to be getting updated patches and stuff like that. So those are all considerations. Get help too. That's what I would say.
Call Ben. Call Corey.
Yeah.
I'll help you.
Let's do it.
Dial Kyle. Yep.
I'm out of the game. So
We'll bring you back in, Kyle. You can do it.
Yeah.
they keep pulling
Remember
me
the
back
Godfather
in.
3?
It's the Y20 or 2019 time. It's not as smooth as Y2K, but it's the same
Go
thing.
buy so much toilet paper now. So many generators. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Great talk. And I think with that, we should just say goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Take care. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.